Mouthwashing is a game that has captivated the masses. These beloved pixels in my computer tell a tale of 5 desperate souls locked in space, left to their own horrible devices. Their choices affect both action and inaction, forcing the audience to look through both the points of view that they might not have considered before, such as all 5 members of the crew and even the company that hired them. Said company is named Pony Express. In this mouthwashing world, humans have achieved the ability to inhabit the stars above, assumedly living on planets different from the Earth we all know and loathe. Pony Express runs one of the last human-operated freight ships called the Tulpar, captained by a Mr. Curly, co-piloted by some guy named Jimmy, repaired by Swansea, cared for through dear Anya, and entertained by an intern named Daisuke. Their trip is meant to last around 13 months, but in the end, they can only make it about 5. Having said that, let's delve into exactly what happened. This timeline of events isn't so clear in the game. It plays on a different chronological order than what happened. So worry not, I've organized it after spending many hours of the game and doing several research on different documents, which I will link down below. This is roughly 13 to 14 months of being locked up in space with the same 5 people. Time here in the mouthwashing game is measured by how many days, months, and even hours before or after certain events, like the crash and the supposed accountability. Things are going decent on the Tulpar when it starts. Everyone is lively and going about their day as they usually would, except for the ship occasionally breaking down, showing its old age. Swansea and Daisuke start to look and double check just to make sure that things are going to function for the rest of their trip. This is where I believe that the downturn of events start. While they are servicing the vents, Anya became injured by almost falling into the vent connected to her room. Her injury isn't really described, but it certainly is an omen of what's to come. More importantly, who? We are told that Anya has started to report a certain co-pilot to Captain Curly, reporting several instances of sexual assault. This goes on for about a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks, presumably happening multiple times. These instances are reported and brought up to Captain Curly, who has done nothing as of yet to punish and reprimand his childhood friend Jimmy. Now we get to 7 days before the crash. Anya is doing routine psychiatric evaluations for the crew, taking her job as the ship's medic very seriously. She almost chastises Curly for lying on his psych evals, but they conclude as long as he is fit to fly in her eyes, there really is no pushing it. Daisuke and Swansea were evaluated right before Curly, and all that's left now is Jimmy. Anya is uncomfortable performing this task, having been tormented by him so many times before, so she asks Curly to do it. Agreeing, Curly goes to meet with Jimmy after having a small incident with Daisuke and Swansea in the utility room, having to help unlock the fire axe after Daisuke accidentally sets off the phone. He and Jimmy go to the cockpit to have this evaluation. This is where we learn Jimmy's attraction to the cartoon horse mascot of the Pony Express. We also learn that the company's shutting down. They have a meaningful conversation about where they want their life to be right before the transmission comes in the form of a note delivering this bad news. This will be the Tulpar's last flight, and all members on board will soon be fired and left to the capitalistic wolves. The next day, 6 days before the crash, Curly clutches the termination letter in his hand and marches to the lounge, thoughts racing on how his crew might react once they learn that they're all about to lose their jobs. He pushes open the door and... surprise! The crew has thrown Curly a surprise birthday party. The Pony Express only allows for 1 party per trip, and to lift the ever more dampening spirits on board, they have elected it be Curly's birthday. Curly uses his captain's privilege to make himself some cake, and his captain's despair to sit down and tell the crew that they are all about to be jobless. After much complaint and distress from the crew, they cut the cake and eat in uncomfortable and resentful silence. Time skips to 2 days before the crash, and Anya discovers she is pregnant. She goes to Curly and tries to reinforce her claims of Jimmy's assault. She tells him more clearly, but doesn't specify yet that she is pregnant, instead of asking him why they had locks on the medical rooms and the cockpits, but not in the sleeping quarters. It's now 1 day before the crash. Anya realizes that she is not fully safe, but has to say something about her condition. She will start to show soon, and needs to inform somebody before it's found out. Anya makes the informed choice to hide the emergency protection kit in one of the cots in her medical bay. She plans on telling Jimmy, but first, she has to go to Curly. Telling him she is pregnant and that it's because of Jimmy's assault, the two part ways, and Curly is informed by the autopilot that they're going to enter an asteroid belt soon. It's the day of the crash, and Curly has done nothing. Anya gathers the strength to tell Jimmy the consequences of his actions. He storms off and Anya becomes fearful. She tells Curly what happened, and Curly runs off to find Jimmy waiting for him near the cockpit. Being the man he is, Curly pleads with Jimmy, saying they can fix this together. Jimmy dismisses him, and he says that he alone will take care of it. Curly watches him storm off into the cockpit, doing nothing. Only moments pass as lights begin to blare, warning them of collision, but that can't be right. Curly had set the autopilot to avoid asteroids, unless... Curly runs to the cockpit with the realization Jimmy, in his rage, has flown the ship directly into the dangers of space. Rushing to try and get the ship to safety, Curly straps down in his captain's seat and... the Tulpar has made direct collision. Spinning off course and plummeting to an inhospitable planet nearby, the front of the ship is in flames. Curly has gone up in flames. Only 147 days into the mission, the captain must have both hands and his feet amputated to free him from the wreckage. Skin is ripped from his body, vocal cords fried, and any hope of saving the ship is gone. It's only 2 months after the crash, and food will run out before the air will. They need to do whatever they can to stay alive. The crew decides that even though their pay will be docked, there is a hope for food, water, and maybe some medical supplies in the cargo hold. Jimmy, who has appointed himself as captain of the ship, retrieves the code scanner to get into places that only the captain should be in. They open the large cargo doors and... it's... mouthwash. The entire time the ship has been hauling oceans worth of mouthwash, Daisuke concludes they've got 4 months before food runs out, and Swansea returns to alcoholism. Everyone is slowly losing hope with the sounds of Curly screaming and sobbing in the background. Alone in the medical bay, Anya realizes that the screams are too much for her. She asks Jimmy to give Curly his Oxycontin, and we see another clear example of his brutality, cutting to a black screen as we hear him force pills down his friend's throat. A month later, 3 months after the crash, Jimmy starts to grab hold of the ship. He starts rationing food and is swiftly shot down by Swansea, who has broken open the machines and assigned Daisuke to sort out an equal amount for everyone to eat. In this time, we can see how Anya and Swansea start to talk more in private. It is revealed in this time that Anya has told Swansea what Jimmy has done to her. This confirms Swansea's dislike towards the man and further pushes his anger and alcoholism to the brink. He starts to refer to Jimmy as Jimbo, and goes off his rocker, dancing in the lounge, swinging around the company-issued fire axe. Another month, another major issue. 4 months after the crash, they have run out of medical-grade painkillers, and they resort to giving Curly paracetamol. In short term, they are giving this severe amputee burn patient Tylenol. Curly will not stop screaming. Once again, Jimmy is asked to help take care of him, and this results in him screaming at Anya, complaining about doing everything after he have elected himself to be in charge, not allowing anyone else to gather supplies or speak up to him, constantly saying he will take care of things. Things have not been taken care of. It is 5 months after the crash, and the Tulpar has run out of food and will soon run out of oxygen. Power is scarce and hardly working, a generator brought out by Swansea being the only thing keeping the screens on. Everyone is on edge. Swansea still dances around, lost to the ethanol in the mouthwash, and Anya has resorted to locking herself in the medical room. This isn't an issue until Daisuke brings it up. Jimmy is bombarded by Daisuke's insistence that they need to open the medical room door. Daisuke says that maybe the lock broke and he is worried for Anya, saying she might run out of something. It can be assumed he is just worried, but Jimmy gets angry. Stomping down the halls and to the door, he bangs his fist on the cold metal and screams for Anya to come out. Anya responds with a monologue that brings concern for both her safety and Curly's. She says that she is taking care of things, and that it is the best thing she has ever done. Remembering the connection through the vents, Jimmy urges Daisuke to crawl through and to get Anya. After several protests from the intern, Jimmy starts to snap at him about how useless he is and about how he's the captain and can tell him what to do. The only vent leading into medical is the vent in the utility room, and they encounter a problem. Swansea won't let them in. Jimmy decides the only way to get in is to knock him out and steal his keys. Spiking a cocktail, Jimmy hands it to Swansea, insisting that it's something of peace, when instead it's just to get him out of the way. Swansea is now incapacitated on the floor, and Daisuke and Jimmy get into utility. The room is clean. It's not full of foam like Swansea had previously insisted. There's a singular working chiropod, and Jimmy chastises Swansea for his greed. Daisuke coming to his defense, but inevitably bowing ahead to Jimmy's insistence. Now crawling through the vents, Daisuke is careful to find the correct path to medical. This cutscene ends with Daisuke wondering, what have you done? 8 hours until judgment, the vents are beyond damaged and beyond dangerous. Screams ring through the holes of the Tulpar and desperate sobbing follows. Daisuke had made it to medical, but not without major injuries. His cries of agony awoke Swansea, and both him and Jimmy must drag his writhing bloody mess from medical, away from the body of Anya. She had truly taken care of it, ending her life and stopping the growth of cells that would prove Jimmy's horrible actions to the company back on Earth. Daisuke is dragged back to the lounge, and now that the only medic on the ship is dead, Jimmy takes it into his own hands, pouring sugary mouthwash onto festering wounds and sealing Daisuke's fate. The infection takes over and the ship is filled with pained groans and cries from now both Curly and Daisuke. Swansea can't stand it. That was his intern. That was the one he was supposed to take care of. Daisuke was the ray of sunshine on this godforsaken rock, and there was only one way to help him suffering. Daisuke's life is ended with a swift hit to the head, a fire axe digging in and loosening Swansea's self-control. Jimmy confronts him, but he dismisses him with a wave of his hand, saying that he could use the chiropod if he really wants. Swansea no longer cares. Jimmy leaves him to grieve, intentions set on the gun that he now knows is in the medical room. Jimmy has barricaded himself in the cockpit. Swansea is screaming and banging on the door, axe crashing through the glass to get at the man. Somehow Jimmy manages to incapacitate him, and we get a final monologue from the last hopeful character. Swansea discusses his life, recounting the darker days of alcoholism, drawn out from his slump by a vision, missing his now grown children and his wife. Jimmy raises the barrel and shoots Swansea twice in the head. 1 hour before judgment, the bodies have been moved. In his final spiral, Jimmy has gathered his crewmates to the dinner table, propping them up as if they were alive, as if they weren't dead because of what he did. Curly is brought up to the table, laid out flat and helpless. Jimmy hallucinates his crew celebrating him. He did it. He took care of things. They tell him to give a speech and to cut the cake. Taking the knife off the table, Jimmy starts to cut at Curly's legs, slicing a piece for each one of the crewmates, including himself. He's upset that Captain Curly isn't eating, and shoves the man's own leg down his throat, refusing to let him vomit it up. 0 hours before judgment, the hour of the event, Jimmy has given up. Curly won't stop vomiting, and the rest of the crew won't speak to him anymore. Hefting up the bleeding and pained man, Jimmy makes his way over to utility. Delicacy returns, and he so carefully puts Curly into the chiropod. Apologizing, he begs for forgiveness, telling him how he took care of everything, how he fixed everything. He only begs for Curly's forgiveness, believing Curly is the only one who he has wronged. The POV switches now to Curly. The glass fogs over our vision as Jimmy's hand slips off the window, staring for only a moment longer before walking off screen. It's silent for a long moment before a shot rings out and the hissing of activation starts. Curly is slowly consumed by the cold of the chiropod, and the credits start to roll. I would like to thank you for watching till the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. The chronological timeline took a very long time to complete, and there will be more. I am going to make a specific analysis on the symbolism and the characters that come into Mouthwashing and how they build on this world. This game is very near and dear to me and a recent fixation, and I hope you all enjoyed it just as much as I did. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.